Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, wherever you are. Welcome to the UN Plant Based Food System Dialogue. And this hour, we are going to be talking about the Grandmother's Council and how grandmothers are critical to make this transformation happen. And we are joined by Tami Hay and Judy Carmen, who are the grandmothers who you are the grandmothers, my quintessential grandmothers, other than Janie. Of course, Janie is here with me. And I say to people, if you think I'm protective of Kimaya, just wait till you do something to her in front of Janie. Yeah, she's tremendously protective of her, and there's nothing she wouldn't do for her. I'm sure the same for you and your grandchildren. They something happens to us when grandchildren are born. At least it happened to me. When grandchildren are born, it's very different from what happened to me when my children were born. It was, I think it just went up another notch. It was, right? What do you think? Did that happen to you as well?
Oh, oh my gosh. It's just the most amazing thing. It's such a deep experience. I remember so well when my son told me that they were going to have a baby, and I was starting to think maybe they weren't going to because they were getting older. And when they told me, I was just standing there and my purse fell out of my hand and I felt roots going down into the ground. And I just fell in love with who turned out to be my grandson. 9 months later, or so certain months later, it was an unbelievable feeling, and it was like a notch up above having the kids whom I adore, would do anything for. These grandkids, I don't know. It's almost impossible to describe the feeling, but it is unconditional love. It's divine love flowing through you, and it gives you a window, I think, into the feeling that all beings have for their kids and grandkids, and a deeper empathy, I think, for all creatures and trees and plants as well, and just the whole realm of living beings. And so yeah, it's but I trying to describe it is very hard.
Right. It's the love that makes the world go around.
It is, yeah. Yeah, and so it's also a love that I think makes grandparents extremely powerful,
Mm-hmm.
because that love is so huge and so fierce. And like you said, we will do anything to protect our grandkids and grandfathers as well. And so here we are, and we need to put that fierceness into action as grandparents in this
Mm-hmm.
world, because things are so critical right now, and we need to make sure that they have a world that they can live in. And as you've explained so well, Silas, that's a little iffy right now. We have a lot of work to do in order to make that happen, but we're so more motivated maybe than we would have been if
Mm-hmm.
we hadn't had grandkids. And I can't really say that because I know there's a lot of people out there who don't have physical grandchildren who are highly motivated. But for me, that really stands out. I've been an activist for over 50 years, but having grandkids really pushed me even farther.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to read something. I don't know if you all have heard about Amma, the
Mm-hmm.
hugging saint.
Mm-hmm.
She talks about the universal love of of mothers. She
Mhm.
I'll just read this one thing she read, I believe, stated at a UN award ceremony where she was receiving an award. I'm pretty sure. Anyway,
Mhm.
she wrote or said, the essence of motherhood is not restricted to women who have given birth. It
Mhm.
is a principle inherent in both women and men. It is love. For those in whom motherhood has awakened, love and compassion towards everyone are as much a part of their being as breathing. So I love that, and I just thought that would be worth sharing for this
It
particular.
rings so true. It
Yeah,
rings so true. Yeah.
yeah.
So,
And
Tammy,
as she
yeah.
points out, the men also have this universal motherhood nature within them, and
Mhm.
some it's already awakened, but for many, it's waiting to 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 see the light.
Yeah. It is in the process of being awakened
Hmm.
worldwide, in
Hmm.
all of us. Uh,
Right.
so, Tammy, tell us about how your grandchildren changed your life.
Oh my. Well, I have a little bit of a different twist, and part of it, Judy and I share a lot of similar paths, and except she's been an advocate much longer than myself, and I'm so grateful for the trailblazers. My friends that have been doing this for decades now, and everyone that's joining right now. I mean, we need to all be here now at this precious, precarious time on planet Earth.
Mhm.
But my first grandchild came into the world right around the time my son was exiting. So she was just a little bit over a year old when my son, his heart started failing, and then about another year and a half later, he passed away. And so she was my connection with him, and she continues to be. She's going to turn 8 this year, and she's got a lot of his mannerisms, his really gentle way, his way of never saying anything negative about anybody, and then my daughter had these two beautiful souls that I get to see quite a bit more frequent. They are. I'm one of the main caregivers for them when both their parents work. So that's kind of a whole different energy on it. But the uplift that I get every time I come into their presence, and they're so young and wild and free still, that is like Judy said, you just can't put into words. And it does ignite this fierce wonder, how come everyone isn't dropping everything that they think is important and doing their best to try to become one with Mother Earth, try to understand her, to try to understand all all babies everywhere that are wanting to just live, that are wanting to stay with their mothers and their herd and their tribe, you know. And I think that the grandmothers coming together. So a friend of mine had a dream, and he shared it with me about how he's seen the grandmothers coming together. And it just resonated so deep in my heart, because I think what's happened in many cultures is the grandmothers have lost their place. They've lost their place in what they're here to do, the wise ones. And a friend of mine said recently that a lot of the grandmothers have not only lost their place, but they've forgotten who they were. And so we've gotten into this youth culture where we do everything we can to try to stay young looking, because the grandmothers have lost their place. And it's mostly a feminine um, suppression, really. It's the women that are trying to perpetually never age, never get a wrinkle, never show any gray hair, that sort of thing. And the women now, the grandmothers that are coming together, there's going to be a million of us and more. Um, they're here to help everyone remember, the women, the men, our sons, our daughters, and to hold space for our grandkids, because they already come in here fully aware and fully enlightened. I have a little bit more challenge than some. My grandkids aren't being raised vegan, and somehow some people say to me, it must really, really bother you. And it's hard to describe. It kind of doesn't affect me in a negative way because their light is so bright. But I'm really grateful that I'm there to be able to talk to them about it. When they invite me for a burger and I say I don't eat cows, and then to have the conversation that a burger is actually a cow, or and then they have this conversation with all the other adults in their life or why, I don't want to go fishing, you know, and even if it's catch and release, what that must feel like for that fish. And they just have this deep well of compassion naturally. They just do. And I think it's our job as grandmothers and then the grandfathers and the wise ones to remember our place, to help everybody come home to what we're here to do. Because, the clock's ticking. And I have heard a couple things today that almost sounds like, well, it's doomsday and, I don't really know if we're going to make it. But there's one thing about being a vegan grandmother. It comes with a lot of velocity, and you don't really have time to sit around and wonder whether the planet's going to make it or not, or whether humanity is going to make it or not. The planet will be here long after we're gone. You just have this fierce love that Judy talked about, and that you talked about, Silash, to say, well, there's no giving up here. I'm just going to keep going forward. And so it kind of all ties into the grandmothers are just joining over the last, there's been grandmothers joining throughout time, the 13 Grandmother Council that has become really in our forefront the last few years. But this is different. These are the vegan grandmothers. And they're so important because it's going to be the final remembrance of what we're here to do. And so I would love to be able to read our declaration. And then, Judy, I would love to speak a little bit, because it's in our declaration, a little bit about Homo Ahimsa and how that came to be and how that's tied in with being a grandmother. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm sharing the web page.
Great.
Okay.
So where people can sign up to join 1 Million Vegan Grandmothers, and as it says in the declaration, you don't have to be a grandmother biologically, but you are under the laws, the natural laws of love, to come together as vegans and help each other evolve in that way, and to hold space and protection for our grandchildren. Go ahead, Kalash.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. We, the 1 Million Vegan Grandmothers, join together using the power of love. Love for the children and the grandchildren of all beings and for Mother Earth. Welcome are all people, regardless of gender, age, and official grandmother status, who align with the values of veganism and the Declaration. We affirm the right of all beings to live in a natural, toxic-free environment which allows all to thrive and to lead sacred, liberated, sovereign, and joyful lives. The power of our love is unstoppable. We do not allow this planet and all who live here to be destroyed. We are creating a vegan world of peace, freedom, and loving kindness for all. We believe that the true nature of human beings and our highest calling is to be kind, compassionate, non-violent, and partners with, not dominators of all life. We believe this is the time of the great awakening of humanity, to leave behind the destructive nature of Homo sapiens and to become who we really have always been destined to be, Homo Ahimsa. As vegan grandmothers, we are here to midwife the birth of a new, compassionate human and bring in the new era of vegan Ahimsa world that our children and grandchildren and those of all species can thrive and be free. Thank you. You'll find that declaration on climatehealers.org under Vegan Grandmothers page, and also the join that you can see on the bottom.
Yeah, join
Yes,
us.
yes, please join us.
Yeah, if you click on that, you should be able to join us.
Hmm.
And did you want to read this poem, Tammy?
Sure. We come together in droves, swarms, earth walking from each direction. Us vegan friends, teachers, the grandmothers, the spirit tellers and grandmothers of us all, with the torch of vegan velocity, of wise ones seeking strength in our million, gathering for our children, grandchildren, and their next 7 generations, if this will be, the next 7 generations, if this will be. The grandmothers are gathering strong. The grandmothers are here to sing a new song of heal. We are coming together as vegan warriors of light, wisdom in our shiny crow's feet and strong working hands. We are the million vegan grandmothers, kukums, omas, lolas, mama, noni, amin sene, many names we are. Thank you.
That is a wonderful poem. And you wrote that, right, Tami?
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
love it.
Spirit
Yeah.
guides through me. You know that too. 'Cause your books are beautiful. Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Beautiful
Thank you.
words of such depth and
Okay.
understanding through your 50 years of.
Tammy,
Oh,
sorry I
boy.
added that Amasani at the end because that's what Kimaya was Jaini.
Ah,
That's in Navajo.
beautiful.
Yeah, it's Amasani.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it was such a beautiful poem.
It is. I
Yeah.
love it. Yeah. You know, it's, I wasn't sure if I should read this or not. It's another poem. I did not write it, but you mentioned Navajo, and the woman who wrote this is Navajo. So maybe I'm supposed to read this.
Okay.
I'll read, it's very long, so I'll read just part of it. But it was written by Lila June Johnston, who recently graduated from Stanford. And it's called Wake Up Time. And it's about her grandmother teaching her. So I'm just going to read the first part and the last part. But you could find it online if you looked up humansandnature.org. Last word dash wake up time. Okay, it starts out. It is dawn. The sun is conquering the sky, and my grandmother and I are heaving prayers at the horizon. Show me something unbeautiful, she says. Try it. If you can see something unbeautiful, then there is a veil over your eyes, and I will take it away. You will see Hozho, and I'm probably not doing that word justice. It's Hozho with an accent over the O. All you will see Hozho all around you, inside of you. This morning, my grandmother is teaching me the meaning of Hozho. There is no direct translation from Dene, the Navajo language, into English, but every living being knows what it means. I love that. Hozho is every drop of rain, every leaf on every tree. It is your every eyelash. It is every feather on the bluebird's wing. It is undeniable beauty. And then I'm skipping the middle part and reading the end. This morning, my grandmother is teaching me something very important. She is teaching me that the easiest and most elegant way to defeat an army of hatred is to sing it beautiful songs until it falls to its knees and surrenders. And I love that. That to me, that's the power of grandmothers. Sing it beautiful songs. It will do this, she says, fall to its knees, because it has finally found a sweeter fire than revenge. It has found heaven. It has found Ho. And so this morning, my grandmother is talking to the colors of the sky at dawn, saying, and that these words I can't pronounce, Ho and Hasli, something like that, which means, and this is really important, beauty is restored again. It is dawn, my friends. Wake up. The night is over. And so I think that's where we are right now. We are at the dawn of this new time, the dawn of our species waking up to who we really are, who we've really always been, that's been buried under this system of domination that Homo sapiens has been living in for at least 10,000 years when we started domesticating animals and waging war. And with those two things go together, they're like twins.
Right.
And so here we are, and it's time. The damage is so severe at this point from living that way as dominators instead of as partners of all beings, that we have to change now. And that is what Stylish Climate Healers is talking about and working so hard for. And that is what the vegan grandmothers are standing firmly and saying, this is it. This is the day. It is the dawn. It is time. And we can't wait any longer. We have to have a world for our children and grandchildren to thrive in. And as things appear to be getting worse, we have to reverse all that. We have to know that we have the power to reverse that trend. And we have to stand in that power. And so I do believe that there are 1 million vegan grandmothers. I think just statistically there have to be, based on how many vegans there are. And so I think we're out there, and as we're being joined by grandfathers and all the other vegans, we can do this. And but a big part of that, as you, Tami, pointed out, is that we have to work on ourselves. We have to recognize our true nature, which is Homo Ahimsa. And Ahimsa means non-harm in Sanskrit. And so we're putting Latin and Sanskrit together there to talk about who we are now, who we have to be, really, if we're going to do this. And we are going to do this. So, but please, everyone, think about that. Think about the fact that you are Homo Ahimsa already. It's just a matter of getting rid of those layers of programs, cultural programs and rituals and all the things that we talked about in the session before this. If you watched that one, let all that go and feel your heart and know that that's who you really are. As Silas has so often said, would you on purpose harm an animal? And everybody says, well, of course not. And Silas says, well, then you're already vegan, meaning you're already Homo Ahimsa. So, hey, let's be that. Ahimsa is veganism. Ahimsa is the golden rule. The three of those things are all the same.
It's beautiful. But turning home to who we are, as Lila Johnston said, it's waking up to the dawn. There was a dawn before we went to sleep. So it's waking up and becoming who we really are, always been. And And I also have an explanation for what were we doing when we were asleep.
Mhm. Silash has been freezing a little bit, Judy.
Yeah, he has a little.
Yes.
Silas, I don't know if you can hear us, but we can't hear you.
So that the earth does not have to go.
We got that. We missed the rest.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're freezing a little bit, Silas.
I was talking about thawing the earth so that the earth does not ever have to go back to another ice age again. And then I froze. And I was saying that. I think it's quite appropriate.
So don't talk about that for a little bit. Oh my goodness.
So Judy, where do you see the grandmothers coming together at certain junctions throughout culture at this point? How will we gather, and what will we be doing to bring in a new Homo Ahimsa world?
That's a really good question. I think what we need to do is, like you were saying, Tami, we need to help grandmothers get back in touch with their true value, their wisdom, and not be carried away by the youth culture that is moving so fast and trying, like you said, keep up with all these trends and the fashion and all those things, and look at their role now, our role now, which is to use our experience that we have for all these years of not only life experience, but also the tremendous depth of love that we have experienced by falling in love with our grandchildren and our children, and feeling that protectiveness and that need to make sure they have a world to live in, a safe and beautiful and free world to live in. And so I think we need to reach out to many of the elders and help them see, and help a lot of grandmothers also change over to veganism, because that's a huge part of being able to birth, midwife this new birth of the new human.
Yeah.
And because we are midwives at this point. And so we need to reach out to as many of them as we can. But my goodness, there are some amazing vegan grandmothers. I'm thinking of Freya Dinshaw. She has been vegan for, I'm pretty sure, over 40 years, and is still at it, still going strong. They just opened up an actual building, a vegan meeting place in the East somewhere. I'm not sure where, New Jersey, maybe. So she's just out there working, and there's many others. So I think we have a lot of power and energy, and I think it's a good idea what you have put together here, Tami. And really, why don't you tell us what inspired you to gather the million vegan grandmothers?
Thanks, Judy. Well, it's like anybody that knows me knows how much I talk about my grandchildren, how much I adore them. And it's not from a shortage of things to do. They're not my only focus, but they're the reason why I focus, for a lack of a better way of saying it. They give me a lot of fuel to understand that my life really matters right now. So I think it's really interesting, because a lot of people think that the grandmothers are right up close, and and personal in a lot of in a lot of communities, and in a lot of Aboriginal communities and the First Nation communities that remember the worth of the grandmother because they have more time. But I'm quite certain, Judy, you don't have more time than you used to have. I don't really think I do either. And I have no idea why that is. But I think part of it is the ferocious need to be able to tell my grandkids I did everything I could, for them. And I was on a really interesting conversation not very long ago, and they were talking about we have to start educating children. We have to start teaching children about the environment. And I got on and I said, I think you're missing the point. I really do. I think the grandparents have to make the changes and be there so that the children have the people that are showing them the way, the grandparents and the parents. And we need to be the ones to step up to the plate, because it doesn't matter what they learn in school if they come home and everyone's still eating food that is such a huge carbon imprint and such a huge amount of suffering and fear and death. And so we're so responsible. And I think once we know, we can't not know. I really feel that once we know, we can't not know. And I've been watching people really closely since I was a little girl. I always observe people. So I know people really, really well. And I went into psychology and social work, and maybe that gave me a little bit more communication ability. But I already knew people. I watched people. I watched how they interact. I watched where they forgot themselves. And what I see happens with so many people is that when they don't know how to use their energy and their power for good, addiction takes over. Mm. And we live in a whole world of addiction. And I see it a lot with the grandmothers. My mother loved, to get really personal here, my mother loved her grandkids. But by the time her great grandkids came along, she had some injury. And so she wasn't doing the things that made her happy. She wasn't able to sew and play as much. And her alcoholism took over again. And she didn't feel she had a purpose. And so it kicked right in, And I'm not saying that's what happens with everyone, but I'm saying that when we ignite as community again, and the elders come together and really are honored for their place, at our table, then everything's going to heal. People are going to find their place. When the grandmothers come together and they show people what they're here for, so much of the really poor coping strategies are going to fall away. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of, my grandchildren are part of it, but as they used to say in social work, we're not born in a vacuum. So it's not just what my grandkids will inherit, even though it's a catastrophe right now, but it's also the world they have to live in. I do not want my grandkids to have to work as hard as I did to find a couple of people that they can relate to or that are kind to them, which reminds me of a poem that was downloaded to me from Spirit, which maybe I'll read it right now. It's quite short. It's called The Jubilee, because these words are given through me when I was up in a mountain meditating, and it's the world that I know we're coming into. And I want my kids, like today, I'll give you an example. So that the full moon yesterday, I felt a little bit off. And they say this full moon brought up emotions that needed to be cleared. And I'm just so connected to the moon, as grandmothers, right? We're connected to the seasons. We're connected to the moon. We're connected to the big picture. And I was quite irritable. Today's International Day of Peace, and I felt the calming effect of there being people all over the world holding space for peace. I could feel it within me. I felt this calmness that I haven't felt that deep for a while. And I was really grateful for that. And I want my grandkids to be able to feel that, not a system of normalized violence, but a system of normalized nonviolence, where there's peace everywhere. And so it's so easy to be peaceful. They just feel it. They see it in the smile of another person. And that's what I want all of us to be able to work towards having our grandchildren inherit. I think a lot of us I know for myself and a lot of my friends I talk to, it was survival of the fittest growing up. It was hard. It was really hard to live on this planet with normalized violence everywhere. My neighborhood was full of it, of every spectrum of violence, you know? And it was normalized and it was hidden, you know? But sensitive children felt it. They felt it from the neighbor was being abused at night. The child that back then it was like, nope, that's their household. You stay out of their business, you know? And that can't happen anymore. The grandmothers are too ferocious. We need to come together and not allow one child behind closed doors to be harmed. We have to develop a system of nonviolence. We have to. We have no other choice. We're absolutely destroying everything on the planet. And so I have great hope. And I want my grandchildren, it's really deep in me. I want them to feel peace every day of their life without having to work so darn hard to feel it, without having to withdraw to feel it. I want them to feel peace in everyone's eyes, in everyone's energy field, because we're not partaking in such destruction and fear and violence. So I'll read If You Believe. We want to close our eyes for a sec, wherever you are. There is a time not too far away when we no longer fight wars that don't belong to us, when love will feel more familiar than pain, and when our hearts will be healed enough that we no longer project our wounds onto another. There is a time not too far away when we see blessings everywhere, in the water, our food, in an animal's eyes. When I know our children will hear more kind words that day than any other. And when we all know we have the power to heal, and we honor the power of love instead of the love of power, there is a time.
Wow, Tami, that was beautiful. I
Mhm.
would really like to share that.
Yes.
Yeah, do you have that written somewhere where we can share it?
It was one of my first spiritual greeting cards when I decided I was going to start a spiritual greeting card line, and the image is a First Nations woman holding the earth with a struggling tree on it. And so, yeah, I'll give you the whole image and the yes, and share it, please, Judy. Thank you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I took care of my grandkids. I got to take care of my grandkids for a week when my kids were gone on a trip. And my oldest is 18. He's a senior in high school. And I was asking him if his teachers were talking about what's going on in the world. And he said, they're all too afraid to. They are afraid that they're going to get fired if they address race or the environment or anything. Everything is so controversial now. And they're still wearing masks and not seeing each other smile and not being able to hear their professors talk very well. And so there's all of that. And then, all the other things that they have to cope with, hormone wise at that age, and learning how to just navigate among all their friends. And so it was very enlightening as far as what you were saying, Tami, that a lot of this missing information that they're not getting, we can give them from our perspective and help them have hope that there's going to be a world for them to live in, because they're not getting the information and the solutions they need from their teachers. There's not one vegan teacher in that whole school, and it's a big school that he goes to. And my other grandkids also go to schools with no other vegan kids and no other vegan teachers. So that makes me their model for veganism. And when we say vegan, we're not talking about just what we eat. We're talking about a way of living by being kind and nonviolent and creating this world of peace that you're talking about, Tami, where is no more violence. There's normalized nonviolence, as Silas talks about. And so I think we may be the only Northern Star for them to follow. I mean, we might be, I don't know. And in that case, we have a huge responsibility to them to help them see that we really can together turn this whole trajectory back towards a vegan, ahimsa world and away from a destroyed world full of violence. And so I think that what you're saying is just really so true and so important. And so many grandmothers, as you pointed out, and elderly women who have this vast experience are feeling like they have no purpose, that they've gotten old, and in our culture they're not valued, especially in this European Anglo-European culture, that they're like, just put them in a nursing home, you know. And a lot of women I know my age have actually gone to nursing homes to live just because of their age, even though they're still healthy. And some of them did not see their grandchildren for over a year because of the lockdowns and the kids being afraid that they would make their grandmothers sick and all of this. And I am so blessed that I was able to see my grandchildren through this whole thing. But a lot of these grandmothers and grandfathers too are feeling purposeless, especially through this whole COVID thing. Like they're just being shoved aside. And so we really, anything we can do to reach out to them and help them see, no, you are so valuable. The love you have in your heart can turn the world around. And we need you. And you do have a purpose. And this is not the end. You've got years ahead to be a light to your kids and grandkids and to save this world. But then the next thing, if they're not vegan, is to help them see it's not going to happen unless we have a vegan world. And that's the whole key. That's what eliminates war. That's what eliminates violence, because we're eating violence all the time when we're not vegan. So yeah, I think everything you said, Tami, is just so important. And thank you for coming up with this beautiful idea of 1 million vegan grandmothers. And so yeah, I think it's very, very important.
Yeah. Thank you so much. You know, the UN is also talking about making peace with nature. That's the theme of the UN. And making peace with nature begins by making peace with the animals who are part of nature.
Right.
So, yeah. So clearly they are also looking for veganism. They're searching for it.
Yeah. Right. Oh, did you freeze again? I want to hear Silas talk about being a grandfather. There you go. You're back.
Yeah. Yeah, I was saying thank you for having them find it, you know, the UN find it. This is a UN event. And yeah, for me, my granddaughter literally changed my life. She literally turned my head around 180 degrees. So because I was going down this path thinking that we don't belong on Earth. You know,
Yeah.
humans don't belong on Earth. Just take human beings out, and the planet will be fine. So that's the construction I had come up with. And so she looked at me, and so I said, we are the only ones that don't belong, right? So we are not part of the perfection of nature. Nature is perfect otherwise, except for human beings. And she looked up at me and she smiled. And she said, "What do you mean I'm not perfect? I am perfect, exactly as I am." That was it. I saw the perfection of nature in her, and so that turned my head around. I said, "No, we belong exactly as we are. We must belong exactly as we are, and we're not telling the right story." And it made me search for the right story. What is the story that we need to be telling in which we are making this transformation? And then I found people like you, Judy, who have already been saying this, that we are Homo Ahimsa, becoming Homo Ahimsa again. Yeah. So thank you. I mean, I tell her she's the most amazing thing that ever happened to me because she turned my head around 180 degrees when I needed it.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you really said that so well. That feeling that we get when we look at our grandchildren and realize that human beings are beautiful, perfect, amazing animals
yeah,
and part of nature. It's just that we got on the wrong track, but it's not too late to get on the right track and be partners with all the animals and be family with them again.
right. And even that, she actually helped me because once you realize we are part of the same perfection of nature, then you look for a story in which even our current phase, we are part of the same perfection of nature. Because you're never apart from nature. Nature has always been our mother and will always be our mother, and will always remain our mother. So we have no choice but to be part of the perfection, just like the elephant had no choice, right? So I started looking for that story, and then I found the story of the thermostat species. That we are the thermostat species. you know. I mean,
Yeah.
once we acknowledge that we have changed the climate of the planet, we've already assumed responsibility for regulating it. That's our role. That's our job. And the animals are looking to us and saying, "Do your job. This is what you were born here for. Now do your job so that we can all thrive on a beautiful planet." So, and that's what we are trying to figure out. How do you stop the climate from overheating and bring it back to normalcy? That's our job. We can't expect the elephant to do it or the tiger to do it. We have to do it. And so, and the million vegan grandmothers and the grandmothers are going to make sure that we are healthy and we are taken care of when we do our job. I see you as putting this safety net, this umbrella around all life, and making sure that we are all okay when we have to do our job. And I cannot think of anyone better to do that.
Well, thank you, Silesh. That's but it's not just us. It's a
Yes.
whole lot of people. And as Tami has made clear, it's at least 1 million and growing. And but I do believe that yes, it's our job, and that we were born when we were in order to be here now to
Right.
do this job. And that, I don't know, that's a really amazing thing to think about, because I just, in my years, they go way back, of fighting nuclear power and all these things from back in the 60s and 70s. we've been preparing for this time for decades, many, many decades. And we stand on the shoulders of hundreds of wonderful genius activists who saw all this happening, who saw what human beings were doing to the earth and to each other and warning us. And so, and then things really got heated up in the 60s and 70s, and the love generation that I'm part of, we were out there, and we didn't really know, exactly what to do or how to do it, but we knew we had to do something. And we've come a long, long way. Things are still a mess, but it's getting a lot clearer what we do need to do. And I think we were all born for this time. This is when Homo ahimsa is going to wake up. And like you have shown, Silas, the metaphor of the butterfly, we're in this kind of gooey time of disintegration that we have to go through in order to reintegrate into this beautiful butterfly that we're becoming now. So, and one other thing I wanted to mention, because I know we're running out of time, is that I think it's incredibly important for us to give our grandchildren hope, because they are being inundated with bad news. If they're watching TV at all, which most of them are, and if their parents are watching the news at night when they get home from school, all they're getting is fear, fear, fear. We've got to, as you were saying, Tami, we've got to show them there's love here, there's hope here. We're going to turn this around. They can help us, and we are going to make this happen. And kind of in a grandmotherly way, we're here to help, and we're here to show the way, because we've been involved in this for so long. We know the way. We really know the way. I mean, isn't that amazing?
Right.
We know the way. We know how to do this. And Climate Healers, go to Climate Healers, everybody who's watching, and you will see a chart that shows exactly where we're going, where we've been and where we're going, from normalized violence to normalized nonviolence and so on.
Right. Yeah. On that note, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure and a privilege, as always, to speak with you and for for your wisdom.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you, Tami, for putting this together.
Thank you, Silas. And please, everyone, go to climatehealers.org and sign up to be part of the Vegan Grandmother movement. Please, we need everyone. It was originally 1,000. Silas said, no, it needs to be 1 million. So here we are joining millions of us. So thank you.